Good afternoon, everyone. It's Make a Move Mike, also known as Michael Harris of Realty Executives Dillon. I'm here with Andy Cruz of Mortgage Heroes, and today we're going to discuss, are you a seller that's missing out on opportunities in today's market? So right now, I don't know if you're aware, but we're in a very strong seller's market. And what makes it a seller's market is we have record low inventory and record low interest rates. Now, inventory levels typical versus now. In a typical market, we have roughly about 4 to 6 months of inventory, and now we have right around just under a month's worth of inventory. So, as I mentioned before, we're entering we're continuing a strong seller's market as we enter the late spring time of this year. Now, what that means is sellers are receiving multiple offers because there just aren't enough listings available for all these buyers who are looking to move into their next home. With record low interest rates continuing for the next couple of years, you got a couple options. Do you refi or do you sell? Some sellers are choosing to take advantage of their equity or they're selling. Now, are you one of those sellers that just wants to sit on the sidelines and watch your neighbors make 40, 50, 60K, sometimes even higher over the list price? Because that's what we're seeing in today's market. And, you know, in order for the market to shift back from a seller's market to a more traditional market or maybe even a buyer's market, we would need a huge influx of inventory in order for the market to shift. And some things that could cause the market to shift is, you know, let's say we have new constructions projects beginning in our neighborhoods or in our cities. Another thing is if we have a loss of job income or a loss of jobs, that may cause some sellers to make that decision like, hey, I need to downsize because my cost of living needs to be reduced. So they decide to sell. So this is something all of you should take into consideration about this strong seller's market. And the number one thing you should consider is that sellers are in control. So I want to pass it to Andy, and he's going to talk about this from a lender's perspective.
Thanks, Mike. Well, one of the things I just wanted to kind of reiterate in this whole sellers being in control market is actually a survey that was done by Realtor Magazine recently, and they found that 10% of the respondents said they plan on listing their house this year. And then even more, they found that 26% of the respondents said they plan on listing their house within the next 3 years. So 2021, 22, or 2023. Now that will help ease up some of the housing crunch, but on the development side and the new construction side, there was a steep fall off of development in the years 2010 to 2019. Now, through the 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up into the early 2000s, you saw as many as 25 million new homes being built by decade, or 27 million homes per decade for multiple decades in a row. And then you get to 2010 and 2019, and that number fell all the way to 5.7 million new homes. So in 10 years, we went from, check this out. From 2000 to 2009, we went from doing like 27 million new homes.
Wow.
2010 to 2019, 5.7 million. Like a five-fold decrease in the amount of new homes that are being built. So you have the low interest rate environment. You have a lot of equity. People are taking advantage of that and selling, but not as many as possible. And you have this influx of buyer demand that's just been off the charts.
Yes.
So, you know, when you say, hey, it comes down to whether or not you're going to refinance or you're going to sell, this comes down to your personal aspirations when it comes to owning real estate and what you're trying to do. It could be a job move that caused you to list. It could be, hey, you know what? I do want to take financial advantage of the marketplace and take that equity while it's on the table for me right now. Right. And people are selling because of that. The thing that I think is going to change for us is, despite there being a much smaller amount of new construction in the last 10 years, yes, I think that the home buyer sentiment matched with home builder permits that they file for is going to push builders back into building. Not only is it necessary, but I think that there's enough confidence in the consumer and there's enough confidence in the economy that if home builders build homes, they'll be able to sell those homes. I'll put it this way. The builders right now that built in 2019 and 2020, they're raking it in right now. because they are taking all that buyer demand and they're like a sponge in a sink, man. They're just like soaking it all up because they are here in the market and there are buyers waiting at the door.
Yes.
So I think that if you plan on moving up, or even if you're trying to get from a 2-story home to a single-story home, you can go out and you can look for that right now because people are going to eventually end up listing.
Yes.
If you're trying to stay in your house right now, then you're not worried about it being a seller's market. There will be a seller's market later too, but you've realized a massive gain of value in your house in the last 18, 24 months. And if you have a situation where you need to refinance, we call them the situational refinance. I got to cash out for this, or I want to save money for a rainy day, or I'm going to pay out this debt, or I'm going to resituate my rate, or just save money. Whatever the situation is, it's a situational refinance.
Yes.
So if you're not selling right now, the refinance is an option, but it's not something that should be forced upon you, number one. Number two, it definitely has to come with some sort of strategy so that it meets whatever your end game is when it comes to your real estate ownership.
Now, when you talk about refinancing, do you normally recommend people refinance for a brand new 30-year fixed year mortgage where the interest is front loaded and they're getting all that interest charged back? I don't personally recommend it, and I always tell my clients don't do that. But what about you? Can you tell some advantages?
Well, it comes down to the end goal, because the situation is this: not every loan scenario matches to go from a 30-year to a 15-year. Like, yeah, that will chop off hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential interest, right, but at the expense of what? And that's where you have to ask the question. That's where the strategy comes in, because you could be only 2 years into a 30-year loan. Let's say you bought a house 2019.
Yes. All
right. Well, if you start a new 30-year loan now, well, shoot, I just restarted a 30-year loan. However, what if you paid off $80,000 of consumer debt?
Wow.
What if that debt was costing you $1,500 a month on top of your mortgage payment? And then by refinancing now with equity at a low rate, now your payment is the same,
yes,
except you've paid off all that consumer debt that was costing you $1,500 a month. By the way, I'm using a real example. I'm not just making this up. This is a real example that we did here with a veteran who had car payments, credit cards, business line of credit. All that got paid off because their house value went up so high, there was enough equity for them to do the cash out.
Yeah.
Get a 2.5% rate. This scenario, 2.5% rate. They redid a 30-year loan, but they were only 2 years into their other one.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So in that scenario, you go, okay, that works. You know what also worked? The other option for him was you could do this same cash out into a 15-year loan, and the payment was still less than the combined expense of his current mortgage and that $1,500 a month of payments that he was making for all that other debt. So either scenario worked. It just came down to which one is it that you'd like, Mr. Borrower? And he goes, you know what? I'd rather have that one, because his end game, like I said before, his end game is he's not going to stay in California forever.
Right.
So he's like, I'm not trying to pay this house off because it's not my forever home.
Got it.
But this helps me achieve my financial goals now while keeping me in a good situation for the later.
Wow. That's an incredible story. And just before we go, one more thing that I've seen others refinance and take cash out for is to purchase another home and rent that current property out. So that's another option. So just something to think about. And if you are considering refinancing, I do know some guys that can take care of you. So just keep that in mind. If you want to meet us via Zoom or in person, we'd be happy to fulfill that request. And otherwise, reach out to me personally. You can reach me at 619-632-7259. I'd be happy to help you.
Well, and likewise, if you're looking to sell your house right now, you need to have that appointment and that consultation with Mike. We've made other videos about how to prepare your house to list, how to get yourself in the best position to win in the marketplace. If you think you're on your own, you don't have to be on your own. You got Mike in your corner. You can ask him the questions you need, the things you're uncertain about, maybe what you might have some doubts about, or maybe, this happens a lot, maybe you've read something that you believe to be true about the market, but we know it's not true. Exactly. And you only know it's not true because you talk to someone who does it every single day in and day out, all the time. So make sure you ask those questions. And if you are a seller considering listing your house, make sure you give Mike a call or an email. You can even make a comment in this video so that he can reach out to you and help answer all your questions, so you know that your needs are being met in that process.
So again, thank you everyone for tuning in to us today. We look forward to seeing you on the next video. And again, if you need to reach out to us, comment below or send us a direct message or give us a call.